Hi everybody, it's Az here from HeelvsBabyface with Emergency Az number 21. Emergency Az videos, they are raw, reactionary type of videos that deal with breaking news within gaming, and they do tend to be a little bit Blizzard-centric because of all the wonderful things they seem to do. Today is no different. In actual fact, today I'm going to be discussing the post that Ion Hazzikostas made in response to what he calls our concerns. Ian, I would probably say the word concern is a little bit of an understatement, but as regards to our concerns about some content which has appeared on the Legion Alpha, which very much resembles in its raw form, bearing in mind this is not its end form, but in its raw form, very much resembles Garrison command table missions. Now, if you follow my channel for any period of time, or if you're a fan of my channel, or you just have come across some videos here and there, you probably understand my feelings about this, but I'm absolutely sure that so many people who watched this video heard that terminology, Garrison command table missions, and just groaned. I mean, potentially even audibly, just, oh god. I don't think it's a piece of content that, never mind my own personal opinion, has gone down well at all with the community. And because this is an Emergency Az video, it may contain fruity language, i.e. language of an adult nature that is swearing, kids, to you and I. So if you are offended by that sort of language, this probably isn't the video for you. Although I'm going to try and keep the effing and blinding down to a minimum, if possible. Yesterday was the impassioned video. Today is the controlled response. Because I don't actually believe what Ion Hazzikostas wrote in an attempt to alleviate our concerns, or an attempt to make us understand where Blizzard were coming from, actually answer any of our concerns. And in actual fact, I think it raises a couple more issues. And finally, I don't actually believe Blizzard understand where we're coming from, truly understand where we're coming from here. So I want to make sure that all those points are dealt with. So what we're going to do is we are going to go through the post. And bear in mind that this response that Ion Hazzikostas has made is in response to a forum post. Although I am absolutely positive, and I don't mean it in an arrogant way at all, but I'm absolutely positive that people of Blizzard have seen my video from yesterday, they've seen Bellular's video from yesterday, and of course all the various forum posts that were made, because there has been a huge response to this type of thing. So he is responding to a very small thread. In actual fact, I think there was only about 4 posts on it before Ian decided to put his response there. So this was clearly a controlled response that was probably already made up based off what he'd seen and read, but decided to pick this thread, this very small thread, as his battleground so he could get in and out. Because Blizzard do like a very non-confrontational way of communicating with their... I was going to say community, but I think that's... yeah. Okay, so I'm going to go through it paragraph by paragraph, dissect it, and go through my thoughts and feelings, and obviously what Ian is also trying to get across as well. I'm not trying to derail what he's saying, but I do want to address it, whether I agree, disagree, and where I think he may or may not have got things right and wrong. So, first paragraph reads, I completely understand the concerns. I immediately take issue with that. I'm not trying to derail this straight away from the start, folks, but I actually don't. And this is a legitimate point that I have, which I'll get to at the end of the video. But I actually legitimately do not believe they completely understand. I don't think they half understand where we're coming from here. What you are currently seeing in Alpha are bits and pieces of a system that is still coming together, untuned, and often even inconsistent between classes without additional context. And as a result, there's also a fair bit of misinformation floating around. Brackets, for example, the cap on active champions / followers is 6 and not 20. End brackets. Just as a point there, if you saw my video yesterday and if you saw Bellular's video yesterday, one thing that we just didn't discuss, because there was no need for us to discuss it because it was completely irrelevant, was the way that the system looked. We didn't discuss that it looked like the Warlords of Draenor system because we knew they were just adapting the skin. We didn't take issue with any of the rewards that were on there because we knew the rewards were simply placeholder rewards. We didn't take issue with the number of followers that were there, or sorry, champions, fuck it, they are followers, the number of champions that were there, or anything like that, because they were the irrelevant things. They were the things which are obviously going to be tweaked and changed. Our concerns was the actual core, legitimate implementation of this type of system. So these kind of things which he's saying now are kind of, I would class as a little bit wishy-washy. It doesn't deal with the true concern that we have for this system. We haven't published a full explanation of the system because we're still working out a few of the details, and that's the nature of alpha. And of course, in the absence of information, seeing an interface that looks a lot like a reskinned version of what you're used to in Draenor Garrisons, brackets followers become champions, Garrison resources become Order resources, etc. end brackets, it's easy to assume that this is just a continuation of the old system. So yeah, I hear what Ian's saying there, but in another breath, you also have to look at something that Blizzard tried to do in patch 6.2, which was provide us with another Garrison command table, but disguise it as a shipyard. Now, you had all the pretty ships instead of people. You had all the lovely aesthetic of the shipyards, because they looked gorgeous. The art team do an amazing job. They looked gorgeous. But at the core of it, it was still the same. And this is how people's brains work. It doesn't matter if you try and disguise something. It's the whole way that people can actually associate things together. So when you go past a field that has some flowers in them and you sniff the odour coming from, the aroma coming from the flowers, it can trigger memories. And the reason why it triggers memories is because your brain has associated the smell with a certain thing. It's like when you listen to a song and that song triggers memories. It's because your brain associates that song with certain memories. It's the same here. The brain is still working in the same fashion. It immediately sees the association between the shipyard and the command table, and therefore they merge into one. And that is essentially what they were. So it doesn't really matter the skin that this takes. It doesn't matter if Blizzard make it animated or just make it prettier, or they just change this and that. If you're still operating off a drag and drop system and then setting people on their way where you as a player do not actively get involved with it, then it is still going to be a Garrison command table mission, no matter what lick of paint may be on there. And if you're still using what we see at the moment as your sort of raw template with which to create that, then surely that's the raw template is where it's going to be developed from. So it's still going to be a Garrison type mission, a Garrison table type mission. Is it not? Okay, so let's go to the second paragraph now. I'd like to at least shed some light on our goals and philosophies and the core ways in which Order Hall missions in Legion are going to be very different from Garrison missions in Warlords. Let's hope so. The mission system in Warlords was conceived as a... I'm going to have to stop there. Before I say this next sentence, when I read this, my jaw was dropping when I read this, because this is a hell of an admission if you break it down. So I'll go back to the beginning of this sentence. The mission system in Warlords was conceived as a core part of the Garrison experience and a self-contained progression that offered rewards that competed with other traditional content. First of all, hold on to that word traditional. Gets used a lot in this thread. So what Ian is actually admitting to here is they created a piece of solo, anti-social, anti-interactive, anti-RPG content that actually competed with dungeoneering, raiding, questing outside. And that, to me, is heartbreaking to read. They knew what they were doing. So they absolutely knew that this was just going to be you on your own, stood there by a freaking table, not getting involved. And if you're not getting involved in the world, and if you're not getting involved with other players, and if you're not getting involved with narrative and NPCs, then what on earth is World of Warcraft being called an MMORPG for? Because they are the core elements of an RPG. And the letters RPG, I've stressed this so many times, the letters RPG are so important. Because the World of Warcraft's not a first-person shooter. It's not an action-adventure game. It's not a strategy game. This is an MMORPG. It's an RPG where you get to interact with other real human beings. And that, what he just described in that sentence, is the anti-RPG. It's completely anti-social MMORPG. And that is pretty tragic to read, to be perfectly honest with you, Ian. Let's move on to the next paragraph. We approached Legion unsure whether there would even be any continuation of mission gameplay at all. Now, I'm going to stop right there because this is another heartbreaking sentence to read. Because you just, again, have to tackle this from a logical point of view. You have utterly failed in Warlords of Draenor as developers. It's not up for debate. You have absolutely failed because you got every single person that you lost in Mists of Pandaria back for the beginning of the expansion. Every last single subscriber. You went from 6.8, I think it was at the lowest ebb in Mists, back up to 10 million for the launch of Warlords of Draenor. And now it's somewhere between 3 to 4 million subscribers. That is a mitigated, utter failure. And it's not difficult to see where Warlords of Draenor failed. I'm not trying to derail this. I'm not going to go too much into it. But it's not difficult to see where it failed. The world content was abysmal. The narrative was abysmal. The social interaction was abysmal. The PvP was abysmal. The only things which tended to work, the dungeoneering was utterly abysmal as well. The only thing that really tended to work in Warlords was the leveling and the raiding. Those were the only two things that seemed to work. Everything else was an unmitigated failure. And one of the things that a lot of people got their backup about, and rightly so, was this anti-social Garrison command table mission business, where you were simply not interacting. And to me, and certainly by the way that you have actually responded in the past to what this content feels like to you, where you said, this is for the kind of person that wakes up in the morning and kisses his wife and makes a cup of coffee, and while he's there making toast for the kids, goes and sends some followers on a mission, goes to work, comes back, and then finishes his followers and gets on with his life as normal. That person isn't contributing anything to the World of Warcraft. The only thing that person is contributing is a subscription fee to you as a company, Blizzard Entertainment. So they are not enhancing the game. They are not making a better experience for other players. They're not getting involved in it. And therefore, it's simply being created as a way that you can try and grab some extra bucks off people who literally have 10 minutes a day and want to play something Farmville related that's got the Warcraft banner. I mean, that's what you can boil it actually down to. So when Legion came about, and we look at this sentence where you say you were unsure of whether or not there would even be a continuation of this system, then I actually cannot believe that there were more people that said, yes, let's have another crack at this, than people that said, no, we have got to separate Legion from Warlords of Draenor. I'd love to have been a fly on the wall in that meeting, because surely to goodness, somebody who loves this game that works at your company would have stood up and said, we need Legion to be everything that Warlords of Draenor was. It needs to be polar opposite. People need to log on to Legion and feel this is completely different. They need to feel as if it's got nothing to do, nothing associated with the last expansion. Nothing feels like the last expansion. Everything feels new. Everything feels different. And considering this form of content, and it's non-content in my eyes because you're not getting involved in it, but this form of non-content is coming or going to be implemented very soon into the lifespan of this expansion. You are making a dreadful first impression, and first impressions last, because if you get 4, 5, 6 million people return to the game for Legion, and one of their first impressions is, oh my god, Even the association, even if you've spruced up the way that this looks, even if it's only 6 champions as opposed to 20 followers, people are going to see it. The association, the brain is going to associate it. It's not going to be difficult to do. People are just going to go, oh my god, it's just more Garrison shit. And how many times, be honest here, how many times do you hear those two things get put together? Garrison shit. Because it almost seems to follow each other. You say the word Garrison nowadays, the word shit, I'd say about 90% of the time comes after it. It really is. It really is something which is now ingrained in people as poor failure content. And if they see that early doors in Legion, how many people are going to be put off? How many people are immediately going to go, fuck this. Fuck this. It's just more Garrison shits. They haven't learned a thing. And that is the big thing here. It's about you, Blizzard Entertainment, learning. Because when you failed the first time to do Garrison command table missions, and then you try to refeed it to the community in 6.2 as the shipyard, and it didn't work a second time, the very fact that you're even considered to give it a third crack at the whip with a different system is just, it's face palming. It's just, you don't seem to learn. You don't seem to understand. It almost feels as if, well, they don't get it. There seems to be a very arrogant ethos here. You don't get it. You don't understand what we're coming from as developers. It's not us, it's you. It's very much that kind of thing. If you're trying to throw it down people's throats for a third time, even if it has a different lick of paint. So I can't even believe it went up for debate. Never mind the fact that it is coming in. Sorry, that was a long one, wasn't it? Off just a single sentence, ladies. So let's carry on with the rest of this paragraph. We focused instead on the artifact and the class order systems, creating traditional content to provide the experience of forming a band of the greatest champions of your class to combat the Legion, with an eye towards class identity and replayability. Now, I've got to confess, this sentence here, I ain't got a clue what he's talking about. I legitimately have not got a clue what he's going on about. First of all, the artifact weapon is a bit, I'm not bad. I'm not saying it's bad or terrible, but all it is an old school talent tree attached to a weapon. That's all it is. And again, it's the association. So I'm not poo-pooing it, but it doesn't get me all wah inside. Now, a few people are going to get very wah inside when they first get hold of the artifact weapon, especially if they're people like Retty Paladins who get the Ashbringer, or enhancement shamans that run away with Doomhammer and stuff like that. They're going to have a right lore weapon to get their hands on, artifact wise, but it's something that will wear down pretty quickly. It'll just simply become, right, I need X amount of artifact points to put into this tree to get it 2 out of 3. And then I'll need another 600 artifact points to make it 3 out of 3. It is essentially just an old school World of Warcraft talent tree attached to a weapon. So it's not a system, what I'm trying to say, it's not a system that's revolutionary. It's not a system that Blizzard have spent weeks upon weeks and months upon months trying to conceive. It is what it is, a talent tree attached to a weapon, and no more. The other bit, I ain't got a clue what you're going on about. The other bit being the class order systems, creating traditional content to provide the experience of forming a band of the greatest champions of your class to combat the Legion with an eye towards class identity and replayability. I don't see that anywhere in Legion so far. So unless that's something which hasn't been implemented, and that's fair enough, if it hasn't been implemented, okay. But there's nothing like that at all. We had a couple of bits of good narrative at the beginning where we're getting our order halls, which was pretty cool. I quite enjoyed that. But as regards to the 2 champions, literally I was just told, speak to them. Oh, right, you want to be my champion? Right, fine. Speak to them. You want to be my champion? Oh, right, okay, fine. Yeah, that was pretty much over before it began. So I don't actually know what Ian's really going on about there. Replayability? Oh, what? with, I don't know, and class identity. Well, I'm not seeing any class identity at all with the Order Halls. I see the aesthetic looking warlocky, or the aesthetic looking shaman-y, if you're in the Maelstrom, but I don't feel as if my identity of the class is completely renewed just because I am in an aesthetic which is warlock-centric. I would feel more class identity if I had physical interaction with other warlock players, like creating warlock-only scenarios and shaman-only scenarios and paladin-only scenarios. Then you would probably get much more of a class identity, because you would feel very much as if you, as a cohesive unit, you as a class, were working together to complete a certain goal. So, just for argument's sake, you could have in the scenario one warlock needs to channel a portal to open while another warlock fights off some creatures that are coming there, and a further warlock is summoning in creatures so that the warlock who's fighting doesn't get overwhelmed. You could just do little, that's a brain fart. Little things like that, and you're thinking, yeah, we've got warlock unity going on here. We're working as a synergistic unit here. I'm summoning, he's channeling, and he's fighting, or she. Sorry, being very sexist there. So that kind of stuff would give me class identity. Just being in an area that looks like something that pertains to my class doesn't give me class identity. So let's move on with the next part of the paragraph. We want your journey through the Broken Isles to feel meaningfully different in at least a few key ways, depending on whether you are a mage, a warrior, a demon hunter, etc. Well, so far I haven't seen any of that. So unless that is content to come, I see none of that whatsoever. I am not out leveling up at the moment, thinking, my God, it's great to be a warlock. So unless that is future content to come, it's kind of wasted at the moment. Let's move on to the next paragraph. Once we had the backbone of our order system in place, a campaign quest arc wherein you recruit champions to aid your cause, and an order hall tech tree where you research upgrades, we saw what seemed like a good fit for a version of the old mission gameplay to provide another outlet for leading the champions you've gathered and spending the order resources you've earned out in the world. My God, Ian, that was a mouthful for a sentence. Well, again, we haven't had all the campaign arcs, so I can't really comment on that. We've only had a small smidgen of that, in as much as we've set up the order hall. So imagine that is the preliminary campaign arc that will eventually get bigger and bigger as the hopefully the alpha and beta grow, and also as the expansion grows. As regards to this order hall tech tree, I'll just put it on the screen now. At the moment, there's nothing different here at all. I mean, if you were to be really cruel here, and again, this is simply because of association. It's not even cruel, to be honest with you. I don't even know why I said that. It's another association. The way that this tech tree's set up, you might as well have buildings. This might as well just be a freaking garrison. Because all the garrison buildings were doing essentially was offering a buff. Offering some sort of buff. So this, if you boiled it down to its common denominator, are just the buildings of the garrison. So this is actually feeling more and more, Ian, like a garrison, never mind just the garrison command table. And that's not a good thing. Because again, garrisons are kind of associated with the word shit. If you're in the know in World of Warcraft at the moment, it's all garrison shit this, garrison shit that. So yeah, having things associated with the garrison, again, is not a good fit. If people start looking at the Order Halls as just Garrisons 2.0, that is not going to sit well with these people. It's not going to work well with these people. These people aren't going to go, great, awesome, Garrison's 2.0, let me stick around. To be honest with you, you talk about traditional forms of content, I bet you to high heaven, people in the World of Warcraft would be happier if they just had a single house with which to decorate in the World of Warcraft than this whole kind of Garrison thing. Because they can just chill out there for a bit, but there wouldn't be anything there apart from the decoration aspect, really, that would hold them there. So they could still go out into the world and do the other content, especially if you are providing it. And this is another thing about Garrison command table-esque systems. You are not providing content for the actual player to do, and that is what they want. You are just doing non-content where they are a spectator in their own game where they're paying a subscription fee. So this kind of tech haul tree business, let's just say it's in its early stages of development. But again, if the raw template of this is in essence just the Garrison buildings buff, the association is going to be very quickly made with the player base. They are not stupid. They're so not stupid, that's why so many have left. So that's why so many lovers of the game have left. 6 to 7 million people left because they're not stupid and they don't buy the bullshit. They don't buy when they're spoon-fed, oh, this is a great fresh system, this shipyard, when they know it's just a reskin of a Garrison command table. And they don't buy, wow, Tanan Jungle's just got such great contents for you to do, when it's just more AP daily areas and a couple of awful rep grinds. You can't fool the community. You can fool yourself, or you can use rhetoric, but you can't fool these people. And that's why so many have left, because they're not buying into the shit. And then let's go on to the next part of this sentence. Yes, where the tech tree researchers, we saw what seemed like a good fit for a version of the old mission gameplay to provide another outlet for leading the champions you've gathered and spending the order resources you've earned out in the world. Well, Ian, you've just said it yourself. We saw which seemed like a good fit. And by what you've described, it sounds like another Garrison 2.0. Whichever way you want to spin it, whichever way you want to dress up the content, you know, you put a dress on a pig, it's still a pig. I've said that in many videos before, and this is the same here. You put a dress on a Garrison, it's still a freaking Garrison. It doesn't change, or it still has the connotations of a Garrison. So what you thought was a good fit, people already have seen no, because they don't want the association with Garrisons. They don't want to feel as if they're back in a Garrison again, or doing a Garrison mission, or doing an AP daily. They don't want to feel anything like that. They don't want to have any association with Warlords. That's why they left. So you might have felt it was a good fit. I'm here to tell you, Ian, your collective you are wrong. It's not a good fit. It really isn't. It's not a good fit with the community. And judging by the response to yesterday's video, judging by the forums, that seems to be the general consensus around the place, fella. So unless you decide to actually physically listen to your customer base, then you're going to go nowhere fast. And you're going to repeat the mistakes of Warlord. And I guarantee you, if Legion repeats the mistakes of Warlord, your game dies. And when I say your game dies, I don't mean it goes out of business. I mean you lose everybody but the absolute hardcore fan base that will play World of Warcraft to the day they die or the day that you turn off the servers. And I don't know what that number of players is going to be, but I absolutely guarantee you that it's going to be way lower than what the sub numbers are at right now. I don't think we've hit the plateau level. I think it can sink a lot lower, and I'm talking sub-million lower by the sounds of it. So what you thought was a good fit, I don't think is a good fit. I don't think these systems work, and I don't like the raw templates with which you're using, because they do nothing but bring up the whole connotations of the Garrison system. Now, let's carry on with this paragraph. But it is far more limited in scope and designed to be a much smaller piece of Legion than missions were in Warlords. It's serving a larger system rather than trying to stand alone as a system in and of itself. And this is another thing. If that is the case, Ian, why is it even in the game? Because all it is doing is acting as a middleman for giving us missions, and you do realise that if you are putting followers in some sort of percentage-based system to get a mission, you are adding an RNG element to getting content. How crazy is that? Hi folks, if you want to go on a mission, you're going to have to see if Lady Luck will actually give it to you. Because if that mission fails, how long is it going to be till it pops again? 10 minutes? 10 hours? 10 days? It's insane that you would even consider attaching quests to an RNG-based system. It's, to me, mental. Absolutely crazy. And the other aspect of it, as we've already discussed time and again, is no content. Because you're not physically getting involved in it. So you are literally just having a system of nothing that people want. Do away with it. Now, why do you think there wasn't a furore, an uproar at BlizzCon when you announced the adventure mode stuff? And the adventure mode stuff, folks, is where you have a map of the Broken Isles and you can click on any of the zones. And in the zones, there's a multitude of different missions for you to do. And then you select the missions that you want, and then you physically go out in the world and do those missions. So it could go to this rock in Stormheim and kill 16 dragons, or something like that. And then you would select that, and because you'd be selecting it based on the reward, and if you do it, it gives you 250 artifact power. And then you would physically go to the rocks in Stormheim, physically go there, and kill those 16 dragons, and then get your reward for doing that. Why do you think there wasn't an uproar about that? Because the table, the map, was just simply acting as a guide for you to select the missions and the content that the player could do. So that's why everyone was like, that's fine. That's fine. Because you could then actually just say, right, I'm going to take a couple of missions from Stormheim. I'm going to take 1 from High Mountain, 3 from Azuna, and I'm going to take none from Ashara right now. I'll come back to that one. I'll do some later on. So you're managing your content as a player. Because that's physical content that you're going to be able to do. That's why everyone's just like, yeah, okay, I like the idea of that. But this is completely different. This is utterly and completely different and doesn't have a place in an MMORPG. Because as opposed to the Adventure Time stuff, or whatever you're calling it, the adventure map, that's where somebody is physically getting active and interactive with the game. Whereas here, you're not. You cannot develop a relationship with an NPC through dragging them into a hole in a table. You cannot develop relationships with players or guilds by dragging people into a hole in the table. You cannot get narrative from dragging people, NPCs, into a hole in a table. You can't do any of that. None of that exists by this form of content. And this is why people hate it. And this is why people don't want it in the game. And this is why people feel it doesn't have a place in the game at all. So you may think that this is just a smaller cog. So instead of being able to do constant missions, you're just given, I don't know, 3 a day, 4 a day, 5 a day, for example. Then what's the point in even having it? It doesn't serve any purpose. It's just acting as a middleman of content which nobody needs, because it's non-content. Don't worry, folks, we are coming to the arse end of this post by Ian. Only a couple of paragraphs, and one of them's a wee one. So here we go. There are fewer followers, brackets champions. Is he mocking us or mocking himself here? I actually genuinely can't tell. Fewer and less frequent missions, but more importantly, the system is more closely tied to the game world itself. Order resources come from playing the game normally, and will come primarily from doing world quests at maximum level. So what? Ian, people aren't complaining that there's per se too much of this Garrison type of thing to do. People are just not liking the type of content it is. So it doesn't matter whether we've got less champions and there are infrequent missions now. That's utterly irrelevant. It doesn't matter that instead of grinding a dungeon to get order resources or grinding some rare mobs to get order resources, you get them through doing quests. That's utterly irrelevant. It's the type of content that people are just not wanting to have in the game. It's the association of this content that people just aren't wanting to have in the game. Whether or not there's 15 missions to do a week or 50 missions to do a week is utterly irrelevant. And the collation of resources, utterly irrelevant. It's the type. It's you. I swear to God, it's you that just isn't getting it, not us. Let's move on. If you get a raid mission, inverted commas, it won't give you a piece of loot directly. It will give you a quest to kill a specific boss in that zone. Well, no, it will give you a quest if the RNG holds up. First of all, can we just say that? In exchange for a bonus piece of loot. Well, why even have that mission on here? Why can't that mission just be on the adventure map, where you select what missions you want to do in the outside world? Why have a middleman? Why do we need a middleman of content? Why do we need an RNG middleman to give us content? That's stupid. We've been through this earlier in the video, Ian. That's stupid. There doesn't need to be a middleman, and we don't need to have RNG content thrown at us. Ooh, are you going to get a quest? Are you not going to get a quest? Oh, no, you didn't get it this week. Fuck. We don't need that whatsoever. So why can't that mission that we need to do an RNG goddamn Garrison follower shit, no matter how you skin it, why can't that just get put onto the adventure map? And then when somebody goes to the adventure map and they're selecting where in the outside world they actually physically want to go and interact and actually have some MMORPG experience, they go, oh yay, look what's happened. I got the raid mission that if I kill this boss, or if a group of us, that's how it should be, a group of us, go and kill this boss, then we're going to get ourselves a cachet that will have a raid piece of loot in it, or, you know, a specific piece of loot in it. That's how it should operate. None of this middleman crap that's just absolutely unnecessary and what people clearly don't want. In general, from the ground up, missions in Legion are not intended to be an alternate progression path or a self-contained activity. We don't think of them as content, but they are a useful additional outlet to complement core traditional content. It's back to fucking traditional content again. Core traditional content such as dungeons, outdoor questing, and raids. I disagree. I absolutely disagree with you. 100%. You don't get it. I don't think you get it. We don't think, when I say we, I think I can say a collective we here, certainly from reading the comments yesterday, certainly from seeing the tweets yesterday, certainly from seeing the outcry in the forums yesterday, I don't think you get it. This isn't a compliment. It's unnecessary. It's absolutely unnecessary. And regardless of whether or not you too deem it to be not content, there is no legitimate reason to have this here. It doesn't benefit the game. And that's where you have to really look at the core of this content. Does it benefit the game? Does it benefit the player? Those are the two major questions that you have to ask. And if they don't benefit the game, and if they don't benefit the player, then they're really not suited for an MMORPG. And having people stood around a table, dragging people, regardless of how many, into slots and sending them on the way for rewards, or RNG aspects of it to attempt to get rewards, or RNG aspects to attempt to get quests and content for them to do, is nonsensical. and doesn't fit an MMO RPG because it doesn't make it any way immersive. It probably breaks the immersion more than anything. I went through the other issues in yesterday's video where it's non-social, it's non-interactive, it's actually very anti-social, it's anti-narrative, there's no narrative. The whole aspect of this is just nonsensical. So I absolutely, wholeheartedly disagree. Now, I'll go on to the last paragraph, and then I just want to end by showing you something, folks, okay? We have more details to share in the future, but hopefully this helps clarify some of our broader goals and provide some context to what you may be seeing in-game. Well, no. Well, it clarifies stuff in as much as I think you're still wrong. I think you are so off the mark. I don't think you're listening to what people want, or more importantly in this case, just listening to what people don't want. Never mind what they want, what they don't want. And so many people, and so much of the communities, we don't want any of this Garrison Facebook bollocks. Regardless of how pretty you make it, and regardless of what skin you put around it, we don't want it. Listen, read the comments, read the forums, watch the videos. We don't want it. It's unnecessary. The people that want it versus the people that don't want it, I think is significantly different. I don't think it holds a place in this game. It's very, very antisocial indeed. Now, I said I just want to end this video with a little something. And this is an extreme example. And the reason why I'm going to use an extreme example here is because I am trying to get across the point of how narrative and how creativity can never be replaced by this thing that we have here. This is Icecrown Citadel. And what you're seeing in front of you is a really touching scene between Saurfang Senior and Saurfang Junior, where we are forced to kill Saurfang's son because he's been killed and rezzed by the Lich King as a Death Knight, and he wants to reclaim his body. The Alliance are attempting to stop him, but then Varian says, no, let him through, let him pick up the body, let him take his son, let him give him a proper burial. He died a hero trying to stop the Lich King. Let him be buried a proper hero. Jaina gets all emotional and cries. I challenge anyone who saw this the first few times not to have been like, the feels about this. And that's what's going on here. And it's amazing. It's an amazingly powerful piece of narrative in the World of Warcraft. Now look at this. This is what it would look like in the game today. And this isn't ridiculous. This is legitimate. Because this is how this form of content, regardless of how it looks, I mean, it's just typically looking like the Warlords of Draenor one at the moment, but this is typically how you would do it now. You can't get any of the emotional connection between the characters. You know nothing about Saurfang Senior, and you know nothing about Saurfang Junior. You have a line of text which is setting up what's going on, and it's so cold, and it's so removed, and it's so anti-narrative, and it's so anti-social, because this part, of course, was seen in a raid. It doesn't matter whether it's a raid or in the external world. If you still get to see this, if you get to see it with other players, if it's a dungeon, then this is a very powerful moment. And creativity, you can't be creative with this on screen. This you can never be creative about. What we saw just prior to that took heart, that took soul, that took passion, and that took creativity. And when you have this sort of content in a game, or non-content in a game, then all that creativity is being stifled for what amazing stories, and are you ready for these 6 letters, the MMORPG could create, which is the World of Warcraft. So, yeah, I have read Ian's post. I think I understand most of Ian's post. There's some of it where... but I just don't agree with you, Ian. I absolutely don't agree with you at all. I think it's you at Blizzard as a collective who are missing the point here, not us. My concerns aren't alleviated. To me, this just seems to be an attempt to justify bringing a system that failed twice already back into the game, whereas you've seen the response from the community as to what they think of it. And again, I have to stress, regardless of what skin you put it in, the association will always be there, because the brain is a very, very clever thing, you know. So, I'd love to see, again, comments in the down below what you think of Ian's post. Do you agree? Do you disagree with him? Thoughts, feelings, and all that kind of jazz. And I hope you enjoyed this vid. Quite a long emergency as it should be an AsChats, but whatever. I hope you enjoyed the vid. If you did, do give it a thumbs up. And also subscribe to my channel. Follow me on social media and Twitch for live streaming. Links, they're in the description down below. And I'll be back with some more stuff very soon. You take care, everybody. Bye-bye.